Why government? Government has countless impacts on your day-to-day life. But where did government come from? Philosophers and historians have wrestled with that question for generations. What is a government? A government is the person or group of people that makes decisions and enforces rules for a larger group of people. A government can rule an area as small as a town and as large as an entire country. Governments come in all shapes and sizes, and no two governments are truly identical. Every government has four main roles: make laws, keep order, protect the country, and provide services. Early governments, a thought experiment. Today, everything we do is recorded through words, pictures, and videos. It can be strange to think of a time before anything was recorded. There was, however, a significant stretch of time when humans existed but did not record what they did. Historians call this era prehistory. But how can we figure out what was going on in a period before things were written down? The first is archaeology, the study of humanity's past through artifacts. Another option is philosophy, or studying the fundamental questions of existence. Since we are not able to directly observe what happened in the past, it can be very helpful just to think about what things were like. Three philosophers thought about what life was like before the earliest governments and what the best forms of government would be: Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean Jacques Rousseau. Main ideas of early governments. Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau would come to different answers about government, but there were some ideas they had in common. All three would explore the idea of the state of nature and the social contract. Another key idea that emerged was natural rights. State of nature. The state of nature refers to a time before governments or laws existed, where people lived without any rules or authority. Think of it as a world where everyone is free to do whatever they want, but there is no protection or organization. Philosophers use this idea to imagine what life might be like if there were no governments to keep order. Social contract. The social contract is an agreement between people and the government. People give up some of their freedoms in exchange for protection and order provided by the government. This idea explains why people agree to follow laws and respect authority. It benefits everyone by creating a safer and more organized community. And natural rights. Natural rights are basic rights that every person is born with, simply because they are human. These include the rights to life, liberty, and property. Natural rights are considered universal and can't be taken away by any government. Philosophers argue that the main role of government is to protect these rights for all its citizens. A look at Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. When considering what life was like before governments emerged and how government should work, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau had unique answers, some similar and some radically different. Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes believed that the state of nature would be a dangerous place where life would be nasty, brutish, and short, because people would constantly be fighting for survival. Hobbes believed that people should give up authority to a powerful government, but couldn't expect that government to respond to their needs. According to Hobbes, the best government is an absolute monarchy, where one ruler has all the power and can never be replaced. John Locke believed that people are generally reasonable and capable of governing themselves. However, he thought that without laws, no one would be able to protect natural rights. Locke's social contract involves people agreeing to a form of government that protects their natural rights, especially life, liberty, and property. Unlike Hobbes, Locke believed that people should be able to change or replace a government if their natural rights are not being protected. Jean Jacques Rousseau. Jean Jacques Rousseau thought that the state of nature, people were free and lived peacefully, but living in society causes issues, saying man is born free and everywhere is in chains. He argued that the social contract should be about creating a government that reflects the general will of the people, meaning it should work for the common good. Rousseau believed in direct democracy, where people directly vote on laws and policies rather than having representatives make decisions for them. Any other explanations? The reality is that governments were a necessary part of people living in bigger groups. When people started farming and living in villages and towns, it made sense that people were put in charge of important things like food, protection, and keeping order. As settlements grew, the needs of the people would become more complex, so governments had to evolve too. What started as a way to make sure people are fed and safe has evolved into an extremely important part of daily life. Here's what you need to do to finish this lesson. Take the reading quiz. You know the deal. There are 3 questions, 6 points total. 1 point just for answering a question, 2 points for getting it right, 0 points for not getting it done on time. Our test questions come directly from the reading quizzes. They are open book, open note, open internet. Do whatever you need to do to find the answers, likely going back into our reading, which is where all these questions come from. And then you can also go back and listen to the video and look at the reading to find your answers. And then in the next few slides, I'll show you how to do the review activities. They are checked for completion in Canvas. They are short answer questions that come directly from the review activities on our test, and the answers are provided on the following slides, along with our instructions. Rather than giving the instructions at the board, I'm going to give you them on this slide. So part A is to compare and contrast. You write the letter next to each word or phrase in the correct part of the Venn diagram. So our terms are A, natural rights, B, life, C, property, or C, liberty, D, property, E, government, F, no laws, G, laws, H, compromises are made, I, you are on your own, and J, rights are protected. So all you're going to do is write the letter next to each word. You don't have to write the whole word, and complete the Venn diagram. So we're balancing these between state of nature and social contract. So remember, state of nature is what exists when there was no government, there were no laws. People generally are left on their own. And then the social contract is when governments are created. So if I look at this first one, natural rights. Well, if I remember what John Locke said, natural rights are universal. They exist all the time. It's just whether they're being protected by a government or not. So in the middle would be where something exists in the state of nature in the social contract, and natural rights are something that exists all the time. Again, just are they being protected or not? If you look at B, C, and D there, that should be a pretty easy one to do for those three. And then the rest of them, I've even given you some of the hints just by explaining what the state of nature and social contract are. Our next activity is to make connections. Explain how each of the terms in the boxes below are related in no more than one sentence. So just one sentence using all of the terms. So life, liberty, and property. That should be a pretty easy one. It actually has to do with a term that we just talked about in our last activity, and this is one of John Locke's key ideas. So life, liberty, and property are the three what? And that should basically fill that in. Our second one, the state of nature and war, you have to think about how is the term war related to state of nature. And remember, state of nature is the time before there was no government. And then our last one, government, citizens, social contract. Think about how those three terms are related. Our next activity. Who would agree? Read each statement in the box on the left side of the table. Put a check mark in the box that the philosopher on the top of the table would have agreed with that statement. So just a quick overview. So there's the statements. I'll read all of those. T.H. Thomas Hobbes, J.L. John Locke, J.R. Jean Jacques Rousseau. So the state of nature was a lawless, violent place. Would Thomas Hobbes have agreed to that? Yes, absolutely. He said that the state of nature was a parable and that people's lives would be nasty, brutish, and short. Another one who kind of would have agreed, I debated if I wanted to check this one off or not, that would be John Locke. John Locke thought that people's natural rights would not be protected without laws, so it probably was a relatively lawless, violent place if people could not protect their lives, their liberty, or their property. Jean Jacques Rousseau, on the other side, would have completely disagreed with this. The people were better off before governments were created. Well, I can tell you there's one for sure who will disagree with that. One will definitely agree, and two will disagree there. Governments are necessary for people to be protected. So think about who might agree to that one. Rulers should have complete authority to do what they want. That one seems that there's going to be one who will agree with that term. And government should be replaced if not meeting the people's needs. That's an interesting one. I think we're going to have two who agree there. And then our last, what about you? What do you think of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau? Who did you agree with the most? Explain your reasoning. Give me a solid sentence or two. So make sure you're finishing this up in Cami and you're ready to submit by the end of the class period. These activities are all checked for completion, so let's make sure that we have them done. As always, please let us know if you need any help. Just raise your hand and you feel free to ask questions. or if you need help. And always, you can replay the video.